she was the only one who voted against me, and I know this because the vote was not anonymous. It was the kind of meeting where they go around the table and ask each person to say yes or no out loud, which is either very democratic or very cruel depending on which side of the room you're sitting on, and I was sitting on the side where it turned out to matter. 7 yes. 1 no. The no was Mara. I want to be accurate about what I felt in that moment, which was not what you might expect. It was not anger, not immediately. It was something closer to the particular disorientation of being surprised by someone you thought you understood. The internal recalibration of a person who has been holding a picture of someone and just discovered the picture was slightly wrong. Mara had been my colleague for 2 years, and my collaborator on 3 separate projects, and someone I had lunch with on Tuesdays when neither of us had a reason not to. And she had looked me in the eye when she said no, which I appreciated, and which also made it significantly harder to process. The meeting ended. People gathered their things. There was the specific ambient noise of a room that held something tense and is now pretending it didn't. Everyone talking a little too normally, making plans in slightly too much detail. I collected my folder and my water bottle and the remains of my composure and walked to the elevator at a pace I would describe as controlled. She caught up with me at my car. Her name is Mara Solano, and she had joined the company 2 years earlier from a firm in another city, arriving with the particular self-possession of someone who had already figured out who they were professionally and didn't need the new environment to confirm it. She was direct in the way that some people are direct as a performance, and some people are direct because it simply does not occur to them to be otherwise, and with Mara it was the second kind, which I had found initially bracing and then indispensable. We had been put on the same product review committee 6 months after she arrived, and we had disagreed in the first meeting, which had been fine, and agreed in the second, which had felt like something earned. And by the third, we had developed the specific shorthand of 2 people who think similarly enough to move fast and differently enough to catch what the other misses. She pushed back when I was moving too quickly. I pushed back when she was being too conservative. We were, without ever saying so, good for each other's thinking. The Tuesday lunches had started because we kept ending up at the kitchen at the same time, and eventually formalized the coincidence. We talked about work and about other things, the way you do when you are comfortable enough with someone to let the conversation go where it goes. She told me things about her family in pieces over several weeks. I told her about the project that had gone badly before she arrived, the one I didn't usually tell people about. We were friends, the particular kind that grows out of professional proximity when the people involved happen to be worth knowing. I had been entirely unprepared for the no. The vote was about the proposal I had been developing for 4 months, reorganization of the workflow process across 2 departments, with a new resource allocation system and a restructured approval chain. I had built the case carefully, documented the data, addressed the concerns raised in the preliminary discussions. I had gone into that meeting believing, not arrogantly, but based on available evidence, that the vote would be unanimous. 7 of them were. I have gone back over the 4 months since, trying to identify where I had misread the room, and specifically where I had misread Mara, and the honest answer is that I had not misread her at all. She had raised a concern in a preliminary meeting about the approval chain restructuring, and I had addressed it to my satisfaction, and I had assumed my satisfaction was also hers, which was the error. Not dramatic, not malicious, just the ordinary failure of a person who answered a question without checking whether the answer had actually landed. I did not know this yet when she caught up with me at my car. The parking structure was mostly empty by that point. It was past 6, and the late April light was doing something specific to the concrete levels, coming in sideways through the gaps, And I was standing at my car with my folder and my water bottle trying to decide if I needed to sit for a moment before I drove. And then I heard her footsteps and turned around. She was still in her meeting clothes, which sounds like a trivial detail, but it registered because she had clearly come directly from the conference room without stopping, which meant she had made a decision to catch me quickly before I left. Before the evening created distance between the vote and whatever she wanted to say. She stopped a few feet away. "I wanted to explain," she said. Not "I'm sorry, not yet." First, she wanted to explain. I respected this. I would have respected anything she said in that moment, less than "I'm sorry" without a reason for it. Because she was not the kind of person who apologized reflexively, and I did not want a reflex from her. "Okay," I said. She looked at me with the direct look she always had, but with something underneath it I did not usually see. Not discomfort exactly, but the expression of someone who has made a difficult choice and is standing inside the consequences. "The approval chain restructuring," she said. "I raised it in March." "You did. I thought I'd addressed it." "You addressed what you heard," she said. Which was most of it. What I was actually worried about was the timeline, specifically the window between the old chain going down and the new one being operational. I think there's a 12 to 14-day gap where approvals above a certain threshold would have no clear path, and if anything time-sensitive landed in that window. She stopped herself. Looked at me. "I should have said this more clearly in March. I should have pushed harder on it. I didn't. And then today was the vote, and I couldn't vote yes on something I had a live concern about. That felt dishonest." I stood there for a moment, running what she had just described against the proposal in my head. The gap she was talking about, I knew the section. I had addressed the structural change, but I had not built a contingency for the transition window. 14 days. She was right. If something significant arrived for approval in that window, there was no clean answer. "You're right," I said. Something shifted in her expression. I think she had expected a different first response. "I should have pushed harder in March," she said again. "That's on me. If I had, you would have had time to address it and the vote would have been different. I should have checked that my answer had actually landed. I answered the version of your concern I understood and moved on." She looked at me. "So we both missed something. We both missed something." A pause. The parking structure was quiet around us, the sideways light still coming through the gaps. "I'm sorry," she said then. "Not for the vote. I couldn't vote yes on something I had a real concern about. I think you'd have done the same. But for not being clearer in March. That was the place it should have been fixed, and I let it go. This is the thing about Mara. She was not apologizing for the position. She was apologizing for the specific, identifiable things she had done differently and worse, which is a different kind of apology and a harder one. "I know," I said. "I'm not angry about the vote." She looked at me carefully. "You're a little angry." "I'm a little something," I said. "I'm not sure angry is the right word." "Stung," she said. I thought about this. "Yes, that's more accurate. I understand that." She looked at the concrete floor briefly and then back at me. "You built something carefully, and the outcome was 7-1. That lands differently than a closer call would." "It does." "I'm sorry for the sting," she said. "Even though I'd vote the same way. I think that's allowed. To be sorry for how something felt and still stand behind the decision." We stood there for another moment. The two of us in the parking structure with the thing between us that had not been between us that morning. And I thought about 2 years of Tuesday lunches and 3 projects and the shorthand we had built. And how the shorthand had survived the meeting and what that meant. "Show me the section," I said. She looked at me. Now? Not now. Tomorrow. Show me where the gap is specifically, and let's build the contingency. If the concern is real, and I think it is, then the proposal needs the patch before it goes back. Something moved in her face that was close to relief but was also something else, something warmer. The gap is real, she said. I'll pull the timeline section tonight. We can look at it tomorrow. Tuesday lunch, I said. Tuesday lunch, she said. She did not move immediately. She stood there for a moment, and I had the impression she had something else she was deciding about. Can I say one more thing? She said. Go ahead. You built something good, she said. The core of it is right. I voted no on a specific fixable problem, not on the idea. I want you to know I know the difference. I looked at her. I know you know the difference. Okay, she seemed satisfied. Okay, she turned to go and then stopped. Over her shoulder she said, for what it's worth, I would rather work with someone who can hear a no than someone who gets a room full of yeses. Those people get comfortable and stop checking. She walked back toward the elevator without waiting for a response, which was exactly the kind of thing she would do. I stood at my car for a moment after she was gone. The proposal went back to committee 6 weeks later. Mara and I had spent 3 Tuesday lunches on the transition window and 2 additional sessions with the operations team that managed the existing approval chain, who turned out to have a contingency protocol from a previous system migration that we could adapt. The gap she had identified closed cleanly. The revised proposal added 11 pages, 12 of which were the transition management section, and when I presented the revision I walked the committee through the gap and exactly how we had addressed it, which Mara had told me to do directly. Show them where the problem was, she had said. Don't smooth over it. It makes the solution more credible, not less. She was right about this, as she was right about most things she said directly, which was most things. The second vote was 9-0, Mara included. I have thought about this since, as a small contained lesson about what it means to be disagreed with by someone who is actually paying attention to your work. The people who say yes to everything you do are comfortable to have around and genuinely dangerous, because they are not reading carefully enough to find the gap, and the gap exists whether or not it has been found, and you would rather find it in a committee meeting than in the 12-day window when the approval chain is down and something time-sensitive has arrived, and there is no clean path. She had been paying close enough attention to find the gap. She had voted no, because voting yes on a real concern would have been dishonest. And she was not built for dishonest votes. She had come to my car because she had not been clear enough in March, and she was built for owning that too. These are the same quality. The no and the apology both come from the same place. A person who tells the truth about what she sees, including the parts where what she sees is her own failure. I had been working next to this for 2 years, in Tuesday lunches and 3 projects and the committee shorthand, and I had known it. I had relied on it. I had simply not seen it from the other side of the table before. I see it now. I see the whole shape of it now, which is that the most valuable person in the room is not the one who makes you feel best about your work. It is the one who finds the 12-day gap before you ship the thing and tells you, even when telling you costs something. There are not many people like that. When you find one, you should keep them close and listen to them carefully and take them to Tuesday lunch and not mistake the discomfort of a no for something other than what it is, which is someone paying attention. We submitted the approved proposal to the executive team on a Thursday. Mara sent me a text that evening that said only, "Clean transition window." I replied, "Told you the patch worked." She sent back the single character that communicates affection and mild contempt simultaneously, which I have now received enough times to understand means something warmer than either of its components. Have you ever been disagreed with, cleanly, publicly, with reasons, by someone who turned out to be right, and had to sit with the specific discomfort of being both stung and grateful at the same time? And have you ever had someone come to find you after a hard moment, not to apologize for what they did, but for the specific part they could have done better, and felt the difference between that and every other apology you've received? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe if you've ever found that the person who voted no taught you something the 7 yeses never could.